Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome iChange Maestro, Kevin Parker.
Well, a very good morning to you. Welcome to iChange 2016. It's been an incredible year at Serena of change, so we've changed the name of the conference to Interchange from Exchange because we want to get much more interaction between our customers and ourselves. So every part of this conference this year is going to give you an opportunity to tell us what you're thinking, what's happening, so we can drive product direction. Heraclitus, remember him? No, oh come on. Everybody remembers Heraclitus, 500 BC, Greek philosopher. He's the guy who came up with the phrase, the only constant is change. And it's been an incredible year for Serena. So 6 months ago, I worked at a company of 450 people. Today, I work for a company of 4,500 people. And sometime next year, I'll work for a company of over 12,000 people. It's an absolutely wonderful roller coaster ride of fun and activity. And you're going to hear today and for the rest of the conference about the immense synergies that have been created by Serena joining forces with Micro Focus. It's going to be really special and exciting. We have an absolutely crammed agenda of dense, intense content, and we're going to get started straight away. And I'd like to introduce you to the person who's going to lead that innovation and that revolution. My friend and new colleague, please welcome John Delk.
Well, good morning. Oh, come on, you can do better than that. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, there you go. I'm excited to kick things off for us today and to talk about a bit of our vision for the future of software development. I wear contacts, so that's what gives me 2020 vision. But what we want to talk about here is what's coming as you think about the year 2020 and the changes that are occurring every day in our industry. And to do that, I'm just going to do a very simple agenda, give you a quick update on Micro Focus, talk a little bit about where we've come in software development and then the future, and give you a bit of a call to action. So it's been kind of boring, as Kevin said, not much change. Lately, maybe a little bit of change, a little bit of announcement last week that Micro Focus and the software division of HP Enterprises are going to come together. We will form a company that will be about $4.3 billion in revenue when that occurs. And you see some of the demographics there in terms of number of employees and customers. And we're combining with these aspects of the software business. So it's not all of the software that's within HP Enterprise today, but it's these aspects, places that they focus in big data, ITOM, application delivery, enterprise security, and information management. Now, I get a lot of questions, people, about how's this going to occur, and here's a series of steps that are going to happen over the coming months. It's really probably going to take another year because of regulatory approvals and all the processes that are involved in making it happen. And so, for the most part, the right way to think about this is, well, what's the mentality that Micro Focus has around making acquisitions? Because it applies to Serena as well. And that is, whenever we do this, we have a history of continued execution. Let me give you a few examples of what I'm talking about. Because of the bringing together of the Attachmate Group, we now own two of the largest host connectivity terminal emulation software companies in Reflection and Rumba. And one of them has a customer base that's much larger than the other, so you would expect that we would say to those customers, we're going to deprecate one and convert you. But in fact, that's not our strategy. We've taken best-of-breed functionality from each product and cross-pollinated into the other and are allowing those customer bases to continue to take advantage of the tried-and-true investment that they've made in that space. That's what I mean by continued execution. Or in the Borland Quality Suite, where after acquisition, we've continued to invest in mature the capabilities there such that it's been in the leadership quadrant for a number of years since acquisition, continued execution. And then finally, with Serena, we see that same continued execution conversation because we've dramatically strengthened our ability to serve this new and emerging DevOps market by combining leaders together that can offer best-of-breed functionality across the customer bases. That's our strategy. So what are we focused on? We're focused on staying the course. Micro Focus has a 40-year history, a 40-year set of experiences. Our strategy with our customers is try to help you innovate with lower risk. We recognize that there's times when you can start fresh or do a full rip and replace, but for the most part, you've got sunk costs, sunk investment in very, very critical IP, data, process, and what we want to try to do is build solutions that run in a way that you can take advantage of those investments, but innovate and take advantage of the latest and greatest trends in the industry. We do that in 3 pillars: build, which obviously is in the software development, software delivery space; operate, where we have a number of management and monitoring capabilities; and then a whole security pillar, or if you want to think about the industry today, you could think about this as dev, sec, and ops coming together. That would be the pillars that we combine under Micro Focus. So what has been our history? Well, we've got a track record of coming up with the best and brightest, newest, shiny new object every few years that has left us with quite a complex, as an industry, topology that can be present in many of our customers. At the time, each change made sense. At the time, each change was just an evolution. But when you look at it now, many of our customers are sitting with different types of technology from different eras that they're still having to make the best use of and serve their customers appropriately. We think as a company we are very well suited to help customers do that. And along with that, we've done the same thing when you look at the actual platforms. We've moved from one platform or device serving many, the timeshare mode for those of us who are old enough to remember that, to a mini computer, microcomputer, client server type evolution where we got to one-to-one. And we've moved past one-to-one to many devices per user now. And what we're being told and what we see with the Internet of Things, obviously, is an exponential growth in the number of sensors and devices. And if we actually did the adding today, many of you would have way more devices than you actually realize because of the number of things that have been electronically enabled and sensors in them. And the point is, it's changing everything about the way we do software development. Even today, time to market has become such a critical issue. I started my career as a programmer, and then I got into managing development, and I remember my last great waterfall project, 18 months worth of requirements. We filled up a conference room with the binders. The users came in and had to stay there until they signed off on the binders, and then we started writing code. Right? And 18 more months to write code, and voila, you have a nice big wireless customer care and billing system that's already out of date. Because that was the methodology that we all knew at the time. And of course today we're light years away from that kind of mindset in terms of how fast our customers and the end users expect things to happen. We call that the consumerization of IT because we've all become consumers ourselves. If you don't like an app on your iPhone or your Android and it's not serving you, what do? You delete it and download another. Your time to market is measured in minutes and seconds, and then we bring that into the enterprise. It's a huge challenge. The next challenge is this whole proliferation of the devices. We used to be able to do things in one kind of browser, or one screen format, or one user experience. And of course today we're well past that, and we have to have a mentality that serves our users in a way that is most comfortable for them for the device that they want to use. And then finally, in all of those devices, we have to now be in their minds and understanding exactly what that user's experience is, because most of the value now is in that experience and the speed at which they can perform the function that they want to perform. And so today's challenges are real, and you'll hear more about that obviously during the conference. But when you roll them all up, it's about keeping pace. You have two opposite ends of the spectrum here. When you get a chance to start fresh, number 2 up there, you can build an application with modern architectures. You can pick the right way to do user experience. But for many of the situations in customers today, you're actually down at number 1 here with some aspect of legacy. And what Gartner here calls the delivery gap is simply, how do I take that legacy infrastructure and try to climb up the curve to where the user expectations and the business expectations are. And we think the tools and the processes that are able to help you do that are some of the best ways that we can serve the industry. And so I want to talk about that. Let me use an example to get us into the future that you haven't heard of probably. We all talk about Uber and Airbnb and all the other digital disruption. Here's digital disruption at a storage container level. Your personal storage where you have run out of space at home, or you have a reason that you want to store things for a temporary time period. And we've all done that at one point or another. And the pricing on that is on a capacity basis. I just married a daughter off in May. We still have some of her stuff at our house. My son's in college. He comes home for the summer. And I say, you know what? We got to go get a storage unit just to put 2 extra couches and these other things because I don't have any room for them. And so we're used to kind of a capacity-based model for that. Well, there's a little company in San Francisco that said, that doesn't really make sense, because most people are actually paying for unused capacity. You always have to get a bigger unit to make sure you have enough room, but very rarely do you fill the unit up totally. And so they've come to an item-based or a personal product-based pricing model where you simply pay by the item that you want stored. You don't care where it's stored. You just want it to be able to be retrieved. And so they moved from a capacity model to an item model, and it opened up a whole new way of thinking. Because it turns out that a lot of the things that you store in San Francisco, things like skis, because you can only ski a few months of the year, other types of things that you store, you also like to loan them to people. And so Omni has created a loaning process where if I have my skis and someone else wants to borrow them, I simply go on my app and I loan them to the person. Omni delivers it to them. I never have to do anything. They've also interconnected with Amazon so that when you buy stuff, rather than it coming to your house, since eventually your stuff at your house is going to end up in storage anyway, they've short-circuited the process. You can buy it off Amazon and have it stored immediately until you need it. 2-day retrieval is free. Anything else is an upcharge. It turns out we're all lazy and they get a lot of on-demand requests at the last minute, so they get money from the upcharges of delivering. What's my point here? Well, with a little bit of thought about an age-old problem, they've totally reinvented the paradigm. You know what the two most popular things people are storing right now? First of all, for women, they're storing the china or the fine glasses and plates that you use for dinner parties and stuff. They bring a box that's padded, you put the stuff in it, send it off. You only use it, 3, 4, 5 times a year anyway? So you call them up, it comes to your house, you put it out, you have your thing, you wash it, you put it back, and you send it back. Okay? The second thing, and this is brilliant, people are storing their secondary house keys. Right? Because if you lock yourself out of your house, how often do you actually have that second key? Well, when you lock yourself out of your house, you call Omni. They show up with your second key and you get into your house. Or if you're out of town and your alarm goes off and your neighbor needs to get in, You simply go to your app, loan your key to your neighbor, they deliver it, and they enter your house. So digital disruption is changing every industry. This is just one example. You all know many other examples. And along with that change, we have now a series of disciplines which are coming to the forefront as even more critical if we're going to respond to that digital disruption. Agile development processes, the DevOps space, how to build applications at web scale and to be able to burst and understand what peak demands are going to look like, and then creating digital businesses like Omni. Omni exists strictly as a locker on your application, on your handheld device. That's your only experience with that company. Because of that, and in addition to the digital disruption, the phenomenon in most of our enterprise companies is simply that they're spending money differently. The old days of large SAP implementations and a ton of money going into reconciling databases and straightening out platforms, a lot of that has shifted to their points of presence, to the systems that engage customers and partners and help them transact business. And you say, well, that's a no-brainer, it's common sense, but it's actually very, very influential in the way we all are thinking about software development now. Because the majority of the money inside the customers that we serve is now shifting to that user experience, that point of presence, that system of engagement. And it's because we understand that there's this digital customer journey out there. If you're a customer of Omni, these are all the things that you'd want to be able to do with them. Check out their software ahead of time. Ultimately end up selecting that application, making payments, using it, being able to return things. And what happens in that digital journey is every time you have a failure, it's a Sev1 issue. It's not something you can hide in the back office. See, when all our money was being spent on SAP implementations, our customers didn't know that stuff was failing. They didn't know that we were having to rerun batch jobs over and over again to get it right. Now, when your shift is to points of presence and engagement with users and stuff fails, they know. And as we talked about before, when that happens, I might use social media to tell people about it. I'm probably not going to tell you. Why? Because most of my behavior is delete the app and download another. I'm not going to work with that company. It didn't work. I'll move on to the next company. And so as a result, all of us have been moving in this direction of trying to figure out how to be more agile, focus on DevOps, build applications in that engagement world, and Micro Focus is no different. This is the topology of our development centers. Roughly 25 development centers around the world, because we've come through a period of acquisition and we've kept people in the places that they were. And so we've been on this journey as well. And we've been thinking and planning and executing along these work streams to try to get a more DevOps mentality into our own software development. And I'll give you sort of three areas that we see as really critical. The first is improving the overall time to market. The reality is customers are paying maintenance on your enterprise software and they want to see value for that. And the way they see value for that is when you fix their bugs and add new features. And in many of our heritage software development teams, we had been on a yearly plus delivery cycle. And we kind of instituted some processes that caused us to take that long that we're starting to break down and think about business increments and delivering more quickly. I've got one team that their last release took almost 2 years, and they delivered a update in about 6 months because they totally transformed the process and started moving to Agile. And that's really important for us because we want customers to be seeing that they're getting value out of maintenance. It's really important in a digital environment because the reality is Omni will be passed by the next Omni unless they're quick to time to market with these new features and capabilities. The second area is you have to reduce complexity in the test and delivery environment. You have to get smarter about how to do that. It turns out that's a huge bottleneck. I had one team that was doing 5 hardening sprints for every single release. By hardening sprint, I mean no additional work on functionality, no additional work on fixing bugs, just making the stuff that we thought worked work. Right? So that's 15 to 18 weeks of nothing but hardening. What does that mean? Well, your release cycles are going to be pretty long because you can't afford to do that unless you've crammed a bunch of stuff in there. Through automation, they've got it down to 2. So they've automatically taken about 2.5 months out of the release cycle just by that focus on automation. And it makes sense, but it's an area we'll talk about a lot in the conference. And finally, this end user experience thing is going to keep coming up over and over and over. And we're spending a lot of time internally trying to figure out how to do a better job with, UI, UX, CX, all of the capabilities in that space apply to how we deliver software. Interestingly enough, we're still learning the lesson that you ought to use your own tools as you're building software. We were working through an internal launch of a third-party product, and before we stood it up, we said, hey, wait a minute, why don't we test this using our own quality suite? And let's make sure that it will withstand the scale that we think will be there. And sure enough, in that quality suite testing, we found some problems, and we're having to work through the deployment architecture. And you would think, well, that's a no-brainer, but sometimes you get moving so fast that those are the kinds of things you don't do. So we're on this journey as well. How does Serena fit? Well, in that journey, Micro Focus already had a set of products that offered capabilities, as you see there on the screen, and we were doing very well. And so what's happened now is we've combined together to make a world-class, end-to-end, full opportunity to enable DevOps. We've added to some of our capabilities in the planning and the agile development space, and then Serena brings release control and application release automation that we didn't have in Micro Focus, and we have the quality suite that Serena didn't have. And so we see a great opportunity there. In fact, one customer story, a financial services customer that's a customer of Serena, very large multinational customer, over 60,000 employees, 1,300 branches, really struggled with application development releases because they had not automated. They were getting very backlogged, very behind with the business, a lot of tension, and Serena's capabilities in automating that release process have allowed them to move much quicker and be much more responsive and spend their cycles on fixing bugs and adding new features and not on just churning through the release mechanics. And we see the opportunity to bring that to a whole suite of Micro Focus customers. So that's how Serena fits in. So let me close and just kind of wrap this up with 4 aspects of this future view that we're focused on. The first is you're going to have to enable business agility. The business is going to require it. They're going to be demanding that you move faster. The users are going to require it because they're going to have these proliferation of devices. They're going to want to be able to do those functions on those devices. And so all of this DevOps work that we're all doing has to end up resulting in more business agility. In addition to that, we're going to be even more focused on measuring and monitoring every aspect of both our internal process as well as what's happening when the customer interacts with our software. You know, the old days of, well, I'm sorry, I can't reproduce that. I'm sorry, it's not happening in my test environment. That's just not good enough. And so it's going to put a lot of pressure on us as a software company, on you as a partner or in your customers' environments to be able to have transparency and see all the way through the transactions as much as possible, because users are going to do things that are unexpected. You know, we've started a process of sending engineers out and visiting customers, and the number one feedback is, man, I have no idea why they're trying to do that with our software. And it's a learning experience because users are going to do that. The third area is you're going to have to automate that release process, the testing, all the things that we've allowed to be manual because it was okay, it was just good enough. Those are going to break down. Those are going to become the bottlenecks. So all the work that we can do in CI and CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery will become even more important as we move into this future. And then finally, eventually, and we're all working towards this idea that there are static releases probably disappears. And most everyone in the industry, and we're already seeing it in our own environments, is how do you build in business increments? How do you think more about microservices? How do you build more of a plug-and-play architecture so that the right component can be available? And the whole idea of sort of packaging and running through a whole release cycle then blends itself into something that's much more responsive to the dynamic nature of the business. Now, are we there yet? No. Are we moving in that direction, and is it a painful journey? Yes. Because what it causes you to do is it causes you to re-examine many of the ways that you've done software development that have worked fine. Many of your people have done it for a long time a certain way, and you're coming and asking them to change. But we believe that's necessary in order to be the type of company that can be responsive to this future of software development. So this is where we're heading, both as a company as well as building our products to serve you in that way. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to kick us off this morning. I'm very excited about what you'll hear at the conference, and I look forward to what Gary will bring here next. Thank you again. Have a good morning.
John, that was great. But just before you go, so we set a challenge this year at the conference, which is for everybody who comes up and speaks, we want to hear what their prediction is. So we're about 5 years away from the end of the decade. We have the Vision 2020 theme for the conference, so we have the Vision 2020 challenge. So, John, what is your prediction for how software development and test will be in 2020?
I give you the prediction that our release process and all of the heaviness that we've got around that will disappear. And we'll really move into that microservices environment. And what we know of today is all the people who are staging and deploying and executing releases can go work on something else.
It's going to be an exciting time. Thank you very much,
Thank
John.
you, Kevin.